you know?
When you went back to the locker room, WWE, how does Steve Austin handle being a top guy around this period of time?
He was great.
He was good.
Yeah.
What about Triple H? Did you sense that he was breaking out, coming to his own player?
Well, Triple H always had, Triple H was a climber, meaning that you could always see he wanted to be that top guy. So even then, he was working his way towards that. It's a combination of not just what you do in the ring; it's also what you do in the locker room.
Was he very political?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, that's part of it. You got to understand. I ask guys I train, who's a mark?
Who's a mark?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's a mark.
That's right. The only two people that aren't a mark are the two guys that are working it. 2 guys in the match or 4 guys in the match. Everybody else, Vince, everybody's a mark. And when do you stop working? Never.
Exactly.
That's right. Which brings me to my favorite term, smart mark, which is the most oxymoronic term I've ever fucking heard, because how are you going to be a mark and smart to the work at the same fucking time? Ain't fucking possible. Get with the fucking program, people.
Did you think The Rock would break out as he did? Did you see the potential in him early on?
Well, yeah, you kind of got that feel from him, but and then he took it upon himself. I mean, and really, honestly, every guy has that opportunity every time he goes. There's a good example. I mean, Steve Austin's a good example. Steve Austin went and did what he felt in his gut, and what happened? They always reference back to just the Austin 316 promo, but literally, he went and, every time he went to the ring, I'm sure there were plans to do this and do that, and he just started going with his gut, and it kept working. Rock was pushed to the back, and the Nation of Domination was supposed to feature D'Lo Brown. A lot of people don't know that.
Right.
And Rock just kept, in little ways, standing out and doing everything he could and to stand out to where he, developed himself. They didn't push him. They kind of hit him. They didn't want to, because he was inexperienced.
Now I guess you returned at King of the Ring, right? You debuted again at King of the Ring?
Yeah, I think I did, yeah.
What are your memories of your debut back?
It was a big mistake for me to, not realize what an opportunity it was. I, again, was thinking, it was just, I want to have a really good match. Very short-sighted. I let Brian Christopher talk me into that finish of pinning the head, and I didn't work the match the right way with the head, and I didn't understand my own gimmick. I didn't understand why it got over. I didn't understand the appeal. I didn't understand how a heel could get heat on me. I didn't understand where a heel's heat was working with me, so I could help them.
Right.
I just looked at it as a wrestling match. And, that'll be entertaining, let's put a Head and Shoulders bottle on the head so that you can win. And not realizing that by doing that, I just, on my debut, I just cut my own throat,
Looking back, how would you have changed things?
Oh, I'd have changed things a lot. I mean, I'd worked the match more, not worrying about spots that I was going to do, and I'd have worried more about getting the idea and the gimmick across that I believed that I needed to tag out to the head, And then, their heat wouldn't have been on stopping me and beating me up. It would have been on the finish when they'd have screwed me over. And if I'd have done that right, if I'd have gotten them, helped them get their heat on the finish, then the next night on Raw, I'd have been able to come back out and do something with them and work the program to where it would have elevated me. And it would have built me towards, bigger and better things. But I fucked up. The wrong twin grabbed the babyface.
All right. How different was Shawn Michaels that came back to work to the WWE from the Shawn you worked with years ago? In our last shoot, you said you liked him, but you could see him as being a huge asshole.
I think Shawn, again, like myself and Chaz, I think he's matured and he's mellowed and has got a different perspective now, and has a different view of what's important and what's not. Joey Matthews sent me a text that really puts in perspective the wrestling business.
Joey Matthews?
Mm-hmm.
Did an interview with him 2 months ago, and I realized he's a genius. Not a genius, but he's very, very smart.
We fake fight grown men in underwear for money. That's what you do for a living. You fake fight grown men in underwear. Kind of seems unimportant and inconsequential when you say it like that.
Right.
So why are you getting so, you know, I know you probably do a lot of these interviews and guys are all bitter and they're like, brother, I was that way, and I realized how stupid that was. Why in the world do you have any reason to be bitter? Seriously. Unless you have a personal issue with somebody,
right?
Fine, grind your axe. But about the business? Hello? I've been on vacation for 26 fucking years. I'm gonna go and fuck around in a ring for money right now. Where else would I get to do that? You know?
Right.
Sure, you know, could have done this, could have done that, shoulda, woulda, coulda, and yeah, this guy fucked me over, and blah, 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 and there's politics. Sure, but I fucked myself over too. I'm not gonna be bitter about it. Live and learn.
What are your thoughts on the whole Chris Benoit tragedy?
Sad. Chris was a very good friend. I knew Chris for a lot of years, you know, and I'm sure there were a lot of deep issues that were going on there that a lot of people didn't know anything about. And that's sad, because if somebody had known, maybe it could have helped. It's a shame. He was, the Chris that I knew was a good man, was a good guy. And you know, I always envied Chris and Nancy's relationship. I genuinely did, from the outside looking in. But you know, and we can all pass judgment. That's really easy. But other than Chris and Nancy and Daniel and God, nobody knows what went on. We can speculate, we can assume, but those are just assumptions. We don't know. And I'm sure there was a lot. I'm not excusing any of it, because there's no excuse for it. But that wasn't the person that I knew. And, everybody jumped on the bandwagon, and as usual. I think as a whole, I think society tries to find a reason or an excuse so quickly because they wanted to say, oh, it was steroids, it was steroids, it was steroids. And the only reason they wanted to do that is because it scared them so much. It scares people because people who have a family, they want to distance themselves from the possibility of that ever happening in their home. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
So if they can say, well, he was a big musclehead, he did all kinds of steroids, and that's why he killed his family, was because, it was all the steroids, then, well, I don't do steroids. So the likelihood of that ever happening to me is never going to happen. And so now I can say, well, this guy was a bad guy because I would never do that. So he's a bad guy. It's like the kids at Columbine. Oh, well, they listen to Marilyn Manson, and my kids don't listen to Marilyn Manson, so, that must have been the reason why. And, that way my kids will never go in and shoot up the school. When there's obviously far more deeper reaching issues than just listening to Marilyn Manson or steroids or head injuries. I'm sure that, there were obviously some undiagnosed psychological issues that probably were there for ages.
Right.
Nobody ever identified.
Was there any warning signs ever? No.
What? I mean, even when you look back, how can you...
Some of his close friends said he was getting paranoid and thought people
maybe
were following
was. Maybe was, but what does that indicate?
Right, you don't know if he's going to... Yeah.
How could anybody, unless you're the amazing Kreskin and you can bend a fucking spoon with your mind, how could anybody possibly predict something so horrific as what happened? I don't know. What warning signs? Were there warning signs when the kids went in and shot? Oh, well, now we look back. Well, if you put the pieces of the puzzle together, I guess you could make anything into a warning sign. So you could justify the obvious and now place blame or responsibility on somebody because, well, if they'd just done this, that wouldn't have happened. But ultimately, the responsibility lies strictly on his shoulders, and it's too bad. They're buying their own gimmick. They're buying their own bullshit. My favorite line, who's he ever be? How stupid is that?
Right.
How fucking retarded is that? Beat the same fucking people you did. Whoever was told to lay down for me.
Exactly.
Hello?
Do you think more could have been done with the head gimmick?
Sure, but I could have done more with the head gimmick.
Right.
Absolutely.
Now, you wrestled Mark Marrow quite a bit, and he got lots of flack from guys for being a bad worker.
Yeah.
Do you think that is fair?
I think Mark was a wrestler, and that's not an insult to Mark.
Okay.
I think Mark came from WCW, where Mark and Dallas Page would have a great match,
That's all.
but they literally practiced it
Right.
for weeks at a time. And wrestling is not a science.